Hello everybody, my name is Kara, and today I'm here with the I Messed Up book tag. This tag was created by Chammy from Is That Chammy, and I will link her original video down below. I was tagged by the wonderful Sylvia from Sylvia K, and I will also link her channel down below. Question number 1. A character appearance that you misread and imagined differently. So I actually have a very recent example of this, but it's indicative of a larger problem that I have, and that is from the Artemis Fowl Files by Owen Colfer, specifically from the short story that's just called like LEP Recon. So I read this again for the first time in a long time for the Artemis Fowl read-along. Basically, it reminded me of this tendency I have to be very lazy when reading descriptions of animal characters. I don't mean like dogs or cats or wolves or like any normal animals, you know, ones that we really have in our world. But if it's like a fantastical creature or a science fiction creature or something that just doesn't really have any correspondent to a creature in our world, I'll read the description and I'll kind of try to picture it, but usually it doesn't work and I just move on and ignore it for the rest of the book. So in this story there are some spiders that are called Tuttle Blues, and honestly they sound like horror movie monsters because they're these tiny little spiders, and the way they eat their prey is by like burrowing into it or like being swallowed by it, and then they eat their prey from the inside out. And that just sounds horrifying and disgusting, but the thing that I didn't get about these is they describe the spiders as silver, and apparently when I read this, I was imagining like actually made of silver. So I'm picturing like mechanical robot eldritch horror spiders that are somehow consuming people, and yet they're robots. I don't know how I thought that worked, but honestly either way it's terrifying, and I'm still trying to get better about actually like paying attention to animal descriptions, because some of these writers, they go to so much trouble to create these interesting beasts, and I just read it and I'm like, this sounds kind of like a bear. I'm just gonna picture a bear. Number 2 is a character name that you've been pronouncing wrong. One that I am having the most trouble retraining myself on is Eco from the Lunar Chronicles. And this is one of the graphic novels that specifically follows Eco, so I really need to get better about saying her name. But when I started reading this series, I said Aiko, and I had heard other people say Aiko, so I just assumed I was right. But no, the name is actually a Japanese name and it is pronounced Eco, and I'm trying to like relearn how to say that name because it's an actual name and I don't want to like mispronounce somebody's name. Number 3 is an overused trope that is your guilty pleasure. And for me, it's not so much a guilty pleasure because I know a lot of people enjoy this and I'm okay with enjoying it too, but it's like the whole fake dating, fake relationship trope. But like the really specific version of that that I absolutely cannot resist is when two characters are kind of pushed into being engaged to each other. A lot of times it's political or based on like trying to bring peace to a kingdom or whatever. So I love when that happens, and then the two characters are like, well, neither of us wants to marry the other person, so let's like work together to like solve this mystery or to like find this killer so that we don't have to get married to each other because I hate you. And then by the end of the book, of course, they decide maybe they actually do like spending time with each other. So that whole like working together to get away from each other and then deciding that you actually may care about the other person, I love that so much. Number 4 is a cliche character type that you like better on screen than reading about. I actually had to think really hard for this one because in general, if I don't like a character type, I don't like it in any mediums, but I did come up with one that even if I don't like it in movies, I'm more okay with it. Like I'm less annoyed seeing it in a film than I am reading it in a book. And that is like the really bland protagonist that is clearly only there to like represent the audience or to move the plot along. And I don't mean just underdeveloped characters, I mean like that very specific kind of main character that we sometimes get in fiction where it's like you have no personality, you're clearly like just supposed to be somebody that any reader can project themselves onto. It's like a wish fulfillment thing. Like I really don't like that in books, I can't stand it. But in movies I can forgive it a little more because we're not actually like reading from that character's perspective, we're just seeing them on the screen and there's other things going on, there's other characters that also get screen time. I don't know, something about it is not quite as irritating for me when it's in a movie. Number 5 is a word/phrase that you learned because of its use in a book. So when I was really young, I didn't really know that the United States spells a lot of words differently pretty much every other English-speaking country. And I was reading a lot of books that were written or published in like the United Kingdom, for example, and I just didn't notice that some of the words were spelled differently. So second grade, I'm 7 years old and I'm taking a spelling test and I get marked down because I spell the word grey, G-R-E-Y. Because that's how they spell it in England, and that's how I was used to seeing that word written because it was in all of these books that were not written in the United States. I was so like genuinely upset and bewildered by what had happened because I was like, it was in a book. This book was like written and published, like they wouldn't spell something wrong. And the worst part is that it was years before I somehow learned that in fact, it is a correct spelling. It just isn't the correct spelling that we use here in America. And actually to this day, I have to stop and think before I use the word grey, like online or like in writing or something, because if I don't think about it, I will use the first one I learned, which was the British spelling. Number 6, have you ever not read or completed a required reading book for school? And no, I don't think I ever have. I've always been like really careful about finishing the assigned reading because it's like, if you're gonna be writing about it, I was so afraid that I would draw a conclusion that would be like proved wrong in the last 10 pages of the book or something. I know that's kind of unlikely, but I just didn't want to take the chance. And I also just didn't like the idea that I would be participating in like class discussion and sort of like, I guess, lying about the fact that I knew what I was talking about. I don't know. I was one of the students who always like participated in the discussion. I was always like interested and I had something to say, even when I didn't like the book, or sometimes especially when I didn't like the book. So no, I never did that. I think there have been a couple of really long assigned articles that were like extra credit or something, or that like we didn't end up covering, and I think maybe I didn't finish 1 or 2 of those for college. But anything that's actually been assigned, I always read. Number 7, have you ever skipped or wanted to skip a chapter from the point of view of a character that you weren't interested in? I've never done that because I feel like if you do that, then technically you haven't read the book. There have been times when I've been really tempted, like for the Inheritance series by Christopher Paolini, which I actually still haven't read that last book, but I remember the second book is when we start getting like big point of view chapters from Roran, Aragon's brother, and oh my god. I hated his chapters so much. Like, I just didn't care about his plot line, like what he was doing. I'm like, that's fine. Like, I hope you're happy, Roran. Can we not waste page space on what you're doing? Because all of the other things that are happening are way more interesting and like potentially earth-shattering. So I really don't care about you, and I just didn't like him as a character. So I didn't skip his chapters, but when I would get to them, I would like flip ahead and see how long I had to read from him before I could get to an actual good chapter. So, and some of his chapters were so long too. I hated it. And finally, number 8 is, have you ever canceled social plans to read a book? I don't think I have, but I am definitely willing to refrain from making social plans if I have a book I want to read. Like, there's a possibility of like going out with friends or going somewhere with my family. And there's a book that I really want to read or that I'm in the middle of that's really good. I'm not going anywhere. And if it's unavoidable or if it's something I actually do want to go to, I'll just bring up the book with me. Like, I distinctly remember when the 7th Artemis Fowl book came out, we were visiting family and we all went out to dinner at like this Thai restaurant, and I did want to come. I was happy to go. But I brought my book and I like sat and read most of the time. Like, people would ask me questions and I'd answer them and maybe like say something back, and then I would go back to reading my book. Okay everybody, so that was the I Messed Up book tag. I'm going to tag Rocky from Blonde with a Book, Laura from Bookie Laura, Todd from Todd the Librarian, Dane from Dane Reads, Olivia from Read by Liv, and Manal from Manal and Her Books. Hopefully you guys haven't done this tag yet. I had a lot of fun. I'd love to see your answers. And of course I tag anyone who sees this video and who wants to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!